The only thing that can make a beautiful day even better is starting it on these beautiful bikes. We got a bunch of MT-09 SPs lined up behind me. Gonna get my quad lock mounted, and then it's off the tail of the Dragon. Well, as you guys can see behind me, everyone's getting geared up. We're about to go out for our first ride of the day. A couple things I'm looking for. Really liked the stock bike and the base configuration. With the SP, I'm hoping for, what I'm kind of expecting it to deliver, which is better damping. At the end of the day, I think it's amazing that this bike comes with adjustable suspension, but this should be a huge improvement. All right, time for the first chunk of riding for the day. We're doing Moonshiner Highway. And we'll get a chance to kind of shake down the bike and see what it feels like. Now, I did get a chance to ride the standard bike for the last week. I gotta say, I was pretty impressed overall with the amount of motorcycle you get for the money, but I was really left feeling like I wanted more when it came to the damping. It's such a confidence-inspiring bike, but then when you start pushing the pace, I just wanted a little bit more out of that front end. So hopefully with the SP here, we've got some incredible spec KYB suspension, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, let's see how that intake sounds. Oh, I love these amplifiers they've incorporated onto this bike. It is magical. And off we go. Oh man, I'm pumped. Despite learning how to ride and living in Atlanta for most of my riding career, I actually never made it up to the tail of the Dragon, let alone Cherahole Skyway or any of these roads up here. So I'm very excited to see what all the hype is about. We did have some rain the last couple days, so even though it's going to be a beautiful dry day, as you can already see, there's a lot of debris in the roads. Yeah, if you guys ever decide you want to come up to this Tennessee, North Carolina area and do these famous roads, we're staying here at the Fontana Village, right by Fontana Dam, and I gotta say, the accommodations have been super nice. I'd highly recommend checking out this place. You guys know I'm the California Correspondent, and I moved to Southern California specifically to ride motorcycles and have that amazing weather and two-wheel paradise it's known for. But I gotta admit, this cool, foggy morning down here in the south is making me miss home just a little bit. But yeah, first impressions are, this feels just like a Yamaha MT-09. There was not a lot wrong with the base model of this bike, so I'm really glad they didn't make any major changes, except for the one department I feel like they really needed it, and that's the suspension. This actually comes with a 4-way adjustable KYB fork, which is absolutely ridiculous. I can't think of another model currently on sale where you get high-speed and low-speed compression out of the forks on a street-legal motorcycle. That is a pretty outrageous amount of performance to get from a bike at this price point, and it's got an Olin shock out back to match, so I really felt the stock bike in the base model configuration kind of struggled a little bit from a damping perspective, so I'm really excited to start pushing the pace a little bit with these and let you guys know exactly how it feels. I want to talk about the engine first. This might be my favorite triple I have ever ridden. Don't get me wrong, I love the Triumph 765 motor. I think the 1200 variant is good. The older 675 generation motor is also fantastic. But none of them deliver power in a way that's quite as exciting as the MT-09. Now, I don't know if that's a gearing change or if it's just where the torque comes on, but this engine in combination with this chassis is just really rowdy and fun. But if you want to lug it and kind of be a little bit more sensible, you can absolutely do that. The other thing I absolutely love is the way this transmission feels. So many bikes with quick shifters, whether it's just up or up and down quick shifters, have kind of a numb feeling. And that has to do with the way the solenoid interacts with the shift linkage that kind of disconnects you from the bike. But this feels notchy as ever. Now, some people might say that feels a little bit unrefined, but for me, it reminds me more of a gated shifter on something that just, it's so visceral, and you get those nice clicks just positively reassuring you that you're in the perfect gear that you want to be in. It kind of reminds me actually of my older Yamaha FC6 and some of those first and second gen cross-plane 4-cylinder bikes from Yamaha, but with all the modern smoothness and convenience. I really like it, and I like how consistent that sentiment has kind of filled its way across the model lineup for Yamaha. It's just, man, even though they're relatively affordable and they're not the most complex motorcycles, nailing the feel is so hard to get right, and they have just knocked it out of the park. Let's talk about brakes. The brakes on the standard model bike are really good. They have pretty good initial bite and decent feedback the farther you get into the lever pull, and by no means would I call them a shortcoming. But you hop on this MT-09 SP and you've got stylemas up front, and good lord, I mean, they're just kind of the gold standard for this price point, and even a lot of the super bikes from previous years come with these calipers. There's a good reason why. They offer a ridiculous amount of stopping power, and the feel at the lever is absolutely phenomenal. I see no desire to ever change these brakes, and it's really cool and confidence inspiring to know you can pick up a bike that's got most of the major modifications knocked out for you. I think if you're really just planning on using the MT-09 as a commuter and you occasionally get out to the twisties and it just kind of is a do-everything bike for you, the base model is going to be fine for most people. But if you're the kind of person that wants to ride it really aggressively, you're putting on a decent amount of canyon miles, or even want to do track days, I think the SP, just from the suspension alone, is kind of a mandatory upgrade. The brakes are a huge bonus. The added electronic adjustment is a bonus, but that's suspension. I mean, you're paying for that, and it's a really good deal. If you want to go out and do aftermarket upgrades to your stock bike, you absolutely can, and I highly encourage it. Being able to set up your spring rates and your valving exactly for your weight and riding style is a game changer. But if you're trying to save some money and you fall within kind of those average weight ranges, I don't see why you wouldn't just get the SP. I will say I'm starting to notice, especially in second gear here, we're not getting the same roll-on power at low RPMs that we do in pretty much every other gear. And it's kind of, when it does rear its head, I guess it's not surprising because it's not shocking you and giving you more than you asked for, but it is a little bit of a letdown. This motor is so torquey and fun, and especially roads like this where you're in second gear a lot, you got to roll on, you see the exit of that corner, and your wrist goes to the bar and nothing really happens until 6,000 RPM. So I don't know if that's a fueling thing, if that's an emissions thing, or if Yamaha is really just trying to prevent people from looping this bike, because boy is it a wheelie monster. But hopefully with some tuning down the road, I think this would be something you could easily eliminate. And like I said, by no means is this a deal breaker, but it is a consideration that I think is important down the road if you're really trying to get the most out of this bike. Well, we have finally got a few miles under our belt here, and I feel confident enough to give you first impressions about the suspension package. And I have to say, wow, wow, wow. This is what this bike deserves straight out of the gate. I'm really stoked that there is a cheaper option of this bike to get more people onto this platform, but this is the suspension you want.
Well, friends, Chase has got to pay the bills, and I got to justify not taking PTO for this trip, so we're going to talk about today's sponsor, me. Well, not me exactly, but Quadlock, who I work for. Now, we'd love if you supported Quadlock because it allows me to have opportunities like this and support Chase's channel and give you guys amazing content. So I'm going to really quickly walk you through what I think is the perfect setup for this MT-09. Now, I'm starting off with our mag case. This fits a ton of phones, including my iPhone 15 Pro, and I'm using the handlebar mount with the vibration dampener. Altogether, that's going to keep my phone right where I need it to make stuff like this, and the vibration dampener is going to save my camera from harmful vibrations. You can get yours at quadlockcase.com, and I'm going to have a link for this specific setup in the bio down below. Let's get back to the riding.
All right, now we are back, and time for the most exciting part of this ride today, and that is US 129, the tail of the dragon. We got a couple miles to go before we get up there, but I've changed the dash so I can see the RPM and speed a little bit better.
I'm so excited, you guys. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little bit nervous, but mostly excited, which excitement is really just good anxiety. Now, I want to talk about ergonomics for a second. This bike is so neutral and comfortable that it's easy to forget to talk about it. And in my opinion, that's how you know a bike is set up properly for the kind of riding you're doing when it comes to ergonomics, is you don't think about it. And the MT-09 is exactly that. The distance between the foot pegs and your butt is high enough to be aggressive and far enough back to give you the leverage you want, but the reach to the bars isn't crazy far, and it's not hunkered down like you're on a super sport. So you get all the comfort of a naked bike, but it's still canted forward enough to give you a sporty riding position and still be really nice and controlled when you're doing more spirited riding. Not only is the suspension way better than what comes on the base model bike, it's got that dual adjustment of compression, so you can do high speed and low speed compression, aside from also having preload and rebound. And what that allows you to do is, I mean, it just gives you a huge crossover in terms of comfort and performance. One of the things I really didn't like about the Street Triple 765 RS from Triumph is that the suspension felt super harsh when you were on rough roads or for daily driving, and it felt amazing at speed, right? And the opposite problem I had with the 765R, which is that it's super compliant and plush, but the second you start picking up the pace, the bike just feels like it needs more support. This bike gets to walk both of those lines, and that is an extreme rarity in this class. Aside from having a much larger range of adjustment with this four-way adjustable set of forks, the valving and ride quality is so much more compliant. Yeah, we've been doing some pretty quick and spirited riding throughout the day and really picked up the pace, and the bike felt super supported there. But also, when we're doing this and just cruising along bumpier roads, I don't feel like I'm getting beat to death like I do on so many other naked bikes in the class. And if I'm being honest, including the base model of this bike, when you have it set up for sportier riding, you really can have your cake and eat it too when it comes to the way the suspension is set up on this SP model. I cannot say enough good things about it. And it's honestly, this is the way the bike should come from the factory, in my opinion. Another thing I really love about this bike is the way you can change the dash themes. Right now, we're set up in one that is more focused on RPM and speed overall, but when you're at a stop, you can cycle through, I think, 6 different menu options that are going to show you a totally different display. In track mode, which is exclusive to the SP, that gives you a lap timer, and you can even go back and look at your maximum lean angle for the day and a bunch of other stats. I don't necessarily like lap timers on bikes. I think they're incredibly inaccurate, especially at a racetrack, because they're not relying on GPS data, they're relying on you to push the button at the right time. But the idea of going out and recording a session and seeing what your maximum G-forces are under braking and acceleration, your lean angle, is pretty damn fun. I am 100% for gamifying things like this, and it just leads to a way cooler experience. I think my only real chief complaints with this bike come down to the way you interface with some of the electronics. It's great that you can swap modes and you got that button easy to access over here on the right side, but you can only change modes when the throttle's closed. Now on other motorcycles I've ridden, that means you can have cruise control on, so your hand is free and the throttle is closed. But on the MT-09 SP and the standard model, you have to have the throttle completely closed. I tried changing modes when I was using cruise control and it wouldn't allow me. For me, this kind of takes away some of the convenience because I have to pull in the clutch, make sure no one's behind me, look down, change the mode, get to the setting I want, and then roll on my way. It's not a huge deal, but at the end of the day, it's one of those things that I'm changing quite a bit when I'm swapping between modes I'm using for commuting or riding around town, and when I get more aggressive up in the canyons or even go to the racetrack. My other chief complaint with this bike has to be the seat. Now, it's not uncomfortable, quite the opposite. We've been riding all day, and my cheeks have nothing but lovely things to say when it comes to comfort. What I don't like is when we start to pick up the pace and ride a little bit more aggressively, the texture is a little too slippery for me, and it doesn't allow me to feel locked into the bike quite like I want to. So many times when I'm going through faster corners, it almost has become second nature where I have to scooch myself back on the seat so I can maintain the body position I want and be comfortable when I'm riding aggressively. I think a set of tank grips would really help with that, but it's so hard to find things to complain about with this bike. Looks like we're starting our dragons. Here we go. Oh boy, I'm excited. can see why this road is so damn popular just in the first set of corners. And boy, this SP is set up perfectly for this kind of riding. Ooh, getting a little light on the front end there. Oh man, what a fun and flickable motorcycle. God, it just keeps going. This is my favorite kind of riding. Don't get me wrong, I love a big, fast, open corner like anyone else. But it's the tight, technical stuff that really suits supermoto riding that I am such a big fan of. And these 11 miles and 111 corners are the stuff that supermoto dreams are made of. Oh my God, it never stops. Hey y'all, Joe here, your California correspondent, and once again I find myself in an unlucky position where I gotta fly halfway across the country and ride motorcycles in paradise. I don't know how I do it week in, week out, but somehow we've made it here. I'm not gonna go super in depth and talk your ear off about the MT-09 platform in general. Chase has already done videos on that, and there's not a whole lot different on this bike. So what I am gonna do is highlight those differences, what I think works better, any quirks, and stuff I love and hate. So we'll get right into it. Starting front to back, the number one thing, what I thought the biggest shortcoming was in the base model, and this has fixed it and then some, is the suspension. The front end on this is one of KYB's newest units. It's 4-way adjustable. I don't know of any other bike for sale currently that offers high speed and low speed compression on your forks, let alone preload and rebound at the same time. This front end feels absolutely fantastic, and because you have those two different types of compression damping, you can actually set this bike up to have a really big range of crossover for comfort on rough roads and all the support you need when you start picking up the pace in the twisties like we did today. I absolutely love this front suspension. The rear is also a massive upgrade from this factory Öhlins unit. You have so much more usable rebound adjustment, and all in all, this is the biggest thing that I think has fixed any issue with the base model. And it makes the base model, I'll be honest, kind of fade into the background for me. Just the suspension alone, to me, is worth the $1,700 jump in price. It's just, for me, it's hard to justify not going for this version over the base model. Aside from the suspension, there are a few other differences. We have Brembo Stylema calipers on this bike. They feel absolutely fantastic. I didn't think there was anything wrong or shortcoming about the stock brakes, but with that better suspension comes more confidence. With more confidence comes more pace, and having a little bit more power and feel at the lever was definitely appreciated as we made our way through some really unfamiliar and super technical riding here in Tennessee and North Carolina. Electronics, there are a few different tweaks. You do have race mode on this bike, or track mode I should say, and you can modify the engine braking. So unlike the base model, you can actually go in and modify the amount of engine braking to your preference, your riding style, and I personally love the trail brake. I don't like to rely on the engine for braking. So this is a big plus for me. I've got a couple Ducatis in the garage, and I'm glad to see that more manufacturers are moving towards allowing us to really make these finite and minute changes on bikes to really set them up how we like them personally. The other big difference is gonna be the livery. I mean, don't get me wrong, Yamaha has some amazing colors out in the base models. There's some really good packages in terms of contrast, and whatever floats your boat, there's an option for you. But this is the only way you can get the silver with the blue wheels and the black tank and the blue pinstriping. I think this bike looks so phenomenal as a whole platform when it comes to the facelift for now, I believe this is Gen 4, but this far and away is the best looking version of this bike. Other than that, I do want to talk about a few standout things I like about this platform in general. And number one is the intake amplification. These beautiful grills right here pump that volume from the intake right into your chest and helmet area. And I gotta be honest, like with emissions getting tighter and tighter, it's so hard to get bikes that sound good stock. I mean, check out most Ducatis at this point and KTMs, they sound like sewing machines. I really love Yamaha's approach in doing this because I don't have to go out and spend a bunch of money, potentially break laws in my state.
I get a motorcycle that sounds fun, is engaging, that gives me a big old grin under my helmet every time I crack that throttle. And I think that's incredible to say. And it doesn't visually affect the bike that much for me. It's super subtle and I love the way it operates. If I try and zoom out a little bit here, the MT-09 is an amazing platform, but the improvements the SP makes are worth the $1,700 and more. You're still gonna get that great quick shifter that feels like a gated transmission on a car. You're still gonna get fantastic lever feel at the brake no matter which one you have. But the suspension alone and the livery and the way this bike looks is worth the price of admission and then some, if you ask me. Now, there's a lot I didn't have time to talk about where we get super in the nitty gritty. And if you guys wanna know a lot more about this bike and get into the technical details, there'll be a full write-up over on Revzilla's Common Tread. That link will also be in the bio. From Fontana Dam, North Carolina, I'm Joe. Ride safe.
You drive a fast car, I drive an MT-09 SP. You're not the same, boy. I'm going to the Dragon to spill some tea.